Hello and welcome. I'm Romina Leonard from International Protection Group. Today, we have Mr. C.S. Liu, an agribusiness expert with 45 years of experience. He studied agronomy and integrated pest management at Iowa State University. He led teams at CB Geigy, Uniroyal, and New Farm. MD and founder of Pacific AgriScience. Now, let's tap into Mr. CS insights and explore the biggest challenges in agriculture and discuss how businesses can stay protected in an ever changing world. Mr. CS, welcome.
Thank you, Romania. Thanks a lot for having me here today. Yeah, I look forward to a very nice, interesting conversation with you.
Thank you. Should I call you Mr. CS or CS?
Just CS will do. Yeah. And CS stands for caring and sharing.
Oh, mine is different. You know what is what I when I with this CS means together with your last name, it's celebrating sustainability leadership in ever changing
Wow.
world.
Wow, that's nice. That's good. That's a different perspective. But
So-
nice.
Okay, so let's start with one of the biggest global issues: climate change.
Right.
It's real and it's affecting farmers everywhere. What
Absolutely.
What is the biggest threat to farmers in Southeast Asia today?
Well, in Southeast Asia, actually, climate change affects crops, farmers all over the world. Okay, so if you want to talk about just Southeast Asia, of course, we focus more on tropical crops, all right? And the biggest one there is oil palm, right? Indonesia has 16 million hectares of oil palm, and they want to grow that to maybe 20 million or over 20 million hectares in the next decade, right? There's a big demand going forward. And there are many other valuable horticultural crops, like durian, right? Exports, it's now going crazy to China. 7 billion US dollars worth of durians being imported into China. And there are lots of opportunities too out there for crops such as coffee and cocoa, right? Prices have gone way up. And by the way, going back to oil palm or palm oil, it's now enjoying very good prices. For the first time in history, palm oil is now priced higher than soybean oil, which is crazy. It has never happened before. And that there are certain reasons for that. But anyway, going back to climate change, it can affect yield, right? If there's drought or floods. In fact, one of the reasons why palm oil prices have gone crazy lately is because of flooding in Malaysia, being the second largest producer of palm oil. There are 6 million hectares of oil palm in Malaysia. And as I said, 16 million hectares in Indonesia. Right. So when the yield goes down because of flooding, but by the way, yield can also go down because of drought, right? Either too much rain or lack of rain, you have problem. So with climate change, you have these extremes, right? A prolonged drought or severe flooding. So these will affect the production, right? So many crops can be affected. Sometimes you have a lot of rain in, say, Cameron Highlands in Malaysia, where Singapore imports a lot of vegetables from. Prices shoot up, right? Because farmers couldn't get the vegetables, grown because of a lot of rain, right? Too much rain, right? So, yeah, climate change can affect all these tropical crops as well, not only those in temperate regions. So all the extremes, either too dry or too wet, will result in these sort of problems. Of course, in Southeast Asia, we don't have snow, we don't have, hurricane or, tornadoes. So we are okay with that, except for the Philippines. You do have typhoons and hurricanes.
A lot, yes.
So, so climate change is real and it can affect all these crops. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, Yeah, climate change is really shaping the industry. When you earlier when you talk about this palm oil, later we'll go more into details to that because
Yeah.
it's something that is controversial. You know, another challenging concern is sustainability.
Right.
Do you think farming can be both eco-friendly and profitable?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Businesses around the world, I'm not talking just agriculture. The need for profitability, the need for farmers here in this case to make money, and sustainability requirements on the other hand, they don't seem to be aligned. When we talk sustainability, we have to think in terms of cost, right? There are many ways to grow crops and to make even a product in a more sustainable way than what it's being done at the moment. The problem is cost, right?
Yes.
Every time you try to be more environmentally friendly, more sustainable, you got to think of cost. There's more cost involved, definitely, right? The way things are done today, making things very cheap, growing crops, growing food very cheaply, is because farmers are doing it in a very non-sustainable way. They use too much of chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers. They don't care about the soils, damaging the microorganisms, the microflora in the soil. This is the problem. On the one hand, they need to make profit. They need to make money, right? On the other hand, there's a demand out there by consumers, by various stakeholders that farmers, you got to do it in a most sustainable way, right?
Yes.
But are they willing to pay? Consumers are not willing to pay. That's the problem. They want things to be sustainable, but they're not willing to pay. So you see, the objectives, the objectives are not aligned, right? Yeah, that's the key issue.
That's an interesting perspective. I'm actually guilty of that when you say about the costs, it's always about the cost. So, but and it's true what you have said about the sustainability and profitability, and the stakeholders must be always aligned
Right.
on this type of thing. What do
Absolutely.
you think is stopping the farmers from adopting the sustainable practices aside from the costs?
Well, aside from the cost, of course, it's also the knowledge and the technologies that are out there, right? So not every technology that is going to contribute to sustainability is known to the farmers. So if you talk about small farmers around the world, not only just in Southeast Asia, we have millions. We have something like 570 million farmers around the world, of which 400 million or more are really small farmers, right? The very big farms of thousands and thousands of hectares are located in Brazil, in Australia, US, Canada, right? In those countries. But in Asia, by and large, farms are very small, other than the plantations, like rubber and oil palm, right? The rest of the farms are all very small, right? So these small farmers are not very knowledgeable, right? A lot of them are even subsistence farmers. So getting the technology down to their level is a major challenge, right? So you could have something very sustainable, maybe even very cost effective. But how do you disseminate that information? How do you reach out to all these millions and millions of small farmers? That's a major challenge, right?
Yeah.
So reaching out to them, it's a stumbling block.
Yes, you are right. It seems like we have a lot of work to do. To do. Profitability is one thing, but food security is another. With the growing concerns, do you think we're heading toward a food shortage in the next decade?
Well, absolutely not. There is no shortage of food. Okay, why do I say that? simply because farmers are not making money. There's overproduction already, right? So with climate change that we talked about earlier, obviously there will be gyrations, right, in terms of food production and availability from time to time. But this is only like, season to season. So we have one season of drought, another season you have floods, right, because of climate change, making climatic conditions more extreme. But these are not fundamentally affecting the total crop production around the world, right? There's too much being produced, and that's why farmers are not making money, right? You know the simple economics, supply and demand. When supply far exceeds demand, so prices are not there for the farmers to make money, right? So and the other thing to also remember is that we have lots of land still not tapped around the world, particularly in Latin America. There's something like, in Brazil alone, 40 million hectares of degraded land because of overgrazing, by farmers raising cattle and other animals over the years. They have been degraded, meaning they're not suitable today for planting corn, soybeans, and food crops such as those, right? And then in sub-Saharan Africa, do you know that 60% of the world's arable land that is not yet cultivated, not yet fully tapped, is located in sub-Saharan Africa. So we have plenty of land. So the concern about, we're going to run out of food, our population is going to go to 10 billion by 2050. And now we are already close to 8 billion. There's not 2 more billion people to feed. Are we going to have enough food? No, we will have enough food, right? And there's a lot of technologies that I mentioned that are not yet deployed to boost yield. And why are they not deployed, as we discussed earlier? It's because the farmers are not getting a return on investment, right? If they were to adopt all these new technologies, they're not going to see a return on investment. And that's why they're not adopting these, right? And there's a lot of food wasted, right? Post-harvest. It is always said to be 30% loss after harvesting because the farmers are not keeping them in cool conditions, not having cold storage or cool storage, right? And why are they not adopting cold storage and cool storage? It's because there is no return on investment, right? There's a cost involved, right?
Yes.
So we can produce a lot more. We can even produce enough today to feed the 10 billion people today, not 2050. But like I said, our farmers are going to make money. If they can make money, we don't have any problem producing more, right? Without damaging the environment too, right? In a sustainable way, and also practicing regenerative agriculture. But like I said, all these practices, all these technologies must allow the farmers to make a good return on investment. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So it's good to know that we will not be hungry. People will not be hungry. The world is abundant. So it's just a worrying reality, and it seems that an urgent action is needed to ensure stable food supplies. So knowledge on farmers, technology, and more. Okay, and in Southeast Asia, going back about what you have mentioned earlier, and in Southeast Asia, palm oil and rubber are key industries, but also controversial. Can they ever be truly sustainable?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, there are technologies available, there are products available that can lend themselves to contributing to more sustainable practices, right? But it's a matter of whether there's going to be a return on investment. So oil palm is controversial because of damaging the environment, tearing tearing up jungles and forests to plant more and more, right? So this is not a very sustainable way. Although you will hear from Indonesian authorities and higher up saying, oh, but oil palm has leaves too, right? Just like forest, trees in the forest, they have leaves too. But, when you have monoculture tearing up, the jungle, which has biodiversity, different plants in the jungle, right? Compared to being just planting nothing but oil palm and oil palm and oil palm, right? So there is that difference. Sure, you replace leaves that are in the forest or jungle with leaves of oil palm, but it's not quite the same. One has biodiversity and the other one doesn't have. And the danger of monoculture is always diseases, right? So if there's a disease that strikes oil palm, let's say, and it's all oil palm, right? There's nothing else. So it's going to wipe out everything. So today you have already a situation in Ivory Coast and Ghana on cocoa. There's a virus that's attacking cocoa in those two countries. And that's why cocoa prices have also shot up because of this virus, right? So monoculture and biodiversity are not quite, the same.
When you mentioned about that, okay, are there already companies setting those good example, like about this palm oil, who are converting this leaves, the bark, to make it sustainable?
Yeah, well, one of the ways to ensure there is sustainability is also using up agricultural waste, right? There are millions and millions of tons of waste, in all sorts of situations. Even a simple crop like, cashew nut. Do you know that cashew nut is actually at the bottom of like an apple? The top part is like an apple. It's only the very bottom has a cashew nut.
Oh.
Right. So you are harvesting just that one little bit out of a big volume of agricultural material, right? So the top part, there's no use for it. So that's cashew nut. Then you have oil palm, right? The tree trunks, we have millions and millions of them being felled a year. And there's no use for this oil palm trunk up to now, right? There's German technology now that's available to convert the old oil palm trunks into useful wood products that can be used for making tables, chairs, doors, windows, right? So valorization of agricultural waste, it's definitely a way to contribute to sustainability, right? So instead of using so much energy and so much resources to grow a crop, but you actually harvest a little bit of it from the total plant or plant material that you generate, right? So there's a lot of scope for that. And today we also talk about sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, right? Singapore Changi Airport from this year, sometime this year, is going to dictate that at least 5% of the aviation fuel needs to come from sustainable sources. And where do you get that? So one of the ways is to go use up some of this agricultural waste, right? And then you also have demand for more sustainable material, to replace plastics, for instance. So there's also agricultural waste like rice straw, wheat straws that can be converted to material very similar to plastics.
Wow.
Right? You cannot replace 100% of the plastic, but at least maybe 30%. So there are so many ways to contribute to sustainability relating to using agricultural waste, right? Instead of just throwing them away.
That's amazing. I never knew that, more and more companies, are doing such thing, or the technology really plays
Right.
a part of producing sustainability, supporting
Yeah.
these
Right.
companies.
I want to add,
Yes.
Romania, that just use the Philippines as an example. You have a lot of bananas. You have a lot of pineapples. You
Yes.
know, the pineapple leaves, again,
Yes.
no use for it, right? You just harvest a small part of it, which is the fruit, but the leaves are, again, of no use.
True.
But somebody has come up with the idea of using the banana leaves, the fibers, to make clothing. And you have barong in the Philippines. Where does it come from? Banana leaves, banana fibers, right? So these are ways and means of using agricultural waste, right? So yeah, companies are already doing that. But again, whether they can get a return on the investment, that's another story, right?
Exactly. Because, when you said about barong, it's expensive. Not all people in the Philippines can
I can afford it.
afford
Yeah,
it.
yeah, all
So
right.
that's why sustainability efforts often require new technology. But many farmers struggle with the cost. Should governments or big companies step in to help?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Again, going back to sustainable practices that we started talking about earlier in the conversation, right? So, rice, again, Southeast Asia, very big on rice growing, right? But still, there are countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia importing rice, right? Okay, the exporters are India, Vietnam, and Thailand. But the other Southeast Asian countries are short of rice. Okay, but having said that, even though there's a shortage, there's still a lot of rice being planted all over Southeast Asia, and that is contributing 13% of the methane that is up in the atmosphere. Okay, rice is a very polluting crop, right? Not only uses a lot of water, right? So these are all issues pertaining to sustainability, right? So how can we grow rice without generating so much methane?
Yeah.
The methane is generated because of flooding. Rice is always in the paddy type conditions, right? But you don't need to grow rice that way. You can grow rice without flooding it. So how can you do that? You do it by drip irrigation, meaning getting water from below the ground, right? Pump it up and do a drip, line down the rows, right? And then you have to protect the moisture that is so valuable, right? Because now you're not flooding it, you're only dripping enough moisture, water to grow that crop. So you need to protect it from evaporation. So you have plastic mulches that can do the job, which, by the way, it's not only preventing moisture loss, but also suppressing weeds. So when you cover the soil, no weeds will come up, right? So there are two purposes, with plastic mulching. But all these will cost money, right? And again, just to set up the drip irrigation, it's a major expense for a small farmer. So in India, there are already government subsidies up to 90%, for setting up drip irrigation. Any farmer that wants to set up drip, they can get back 90% of the cost. And for the plastic mulches, they can get back 50%. Okay, when I mention plastic, people are going to say, oh my God, you're going to throw so much plastic into the farm. No, these plastics can be collected back for recycling. So there is already a process in place, to ensure the farmers do not leave, used plastic sheets in the farm, right? They need to collect them back. If there's a system where they can get some money back, why not? The farmers will not just leave them in the field, right? So there's a recycling process to ensure that we're not polluting the farmland, the farms. Right?
Yeah, and that's a good thing to know. How about the tax carbon credits? Is it the farmers have this carbon credits when they do such sustainability practices like those drip irrigation? Are they being incentivized now?
Yeah, that was a very interesting subject. Okay, carbon credit. Everybody talks about carbon credit, and if you have sustainable practices, you should earn carbon credit, right? So that's a no-brainer. However, having said that, gaining carbon credits in agriculture, it's extremely challenging because there's a cost involved. So it's not for the small farmers, unfortunately, because of the process. You need to engage assessors to come in to measure your baseline, right? Today, your current bad practice is generating so much methane. Now, going forward, you don't want to flood the rice, right? You're going to grow it on an upland basis with drip irrigation and plastic mulching. So it's a long process. It could take 2 years. And how can a small farm or small farmer afford to engage an assessor? And also then the amount of carbon credit earned may not be enough to even offset the cost of earning the credit. So that's the issue. So in general, there's something like $2 billion of carbon credits being traded today in the carbon exchanges around the world, but only 1% is derived from agriculture. So it's not easy, right? People think that, there's something that we can do to earn carbon credit as well in agriculture. But in reality, it is very tough.
Managing risks properly is crucial. How can insurance play a bigger role in protecting farmers and food producers?
Well, around the world, farm insurance has already been there for a long time, right? But it's only the big farms, the big farmers, that who are planting thousands and thousands of hectares of whatever crop. They are the ones who have the insurance against, like we said, drought and, hailstorm and tornadoes and hurricanes. They have all those insurances, right? Policies that are out there. And they do buy them, right? Because they are planting thousands and thousands of hectares. So a lot of money is at stake. But when it comes to the small farms, how can a small farmer be able to tap into insurance? And it's so strange that they are the ones who need to have insurance the most, right? It's just like bank loans, right? The more you need it, the less chances of you getting it. The most desperate you are to have it, the less chances of you getting it. So the insurance here is the same. There's a premium involved, but there's that need for risk mitigation, right, through insurance. So there's a lot of scope for small farmers to tap into insurance policies, especially going forward with climate change. Weather being so unpredictable, getting more and more unpredictable, right? So how does an insurance company be able to, again, engage millions and millions of farmers, right? Earlier, we were talking about oil palm in Southeast Asia. Now, that's a plantation basis. Something like 60% are big farms anyway, right? Of all those millions and millions of hectares that I mentioned in Indonesia and Malaysia, right? So the big ones have no problems, right? They probably have insurance policies. It's more the smallholders who have 5 hectares, 10 hectares, right? So they are the ones who are taking the highest risk, right? Because they are small farmers. The whole family could be dependent on the income from those 5 or 10 hectares, right? So they need to have insurance policies against all these factors out there that will affect their productivity and production, right? So it's a matter of somehow reaching out to them, right, with a policy that is affordable, right, at the same time. But the good thing for insurance companies would be you have numbers, right? Insurance companies don't generally like to insure against something for 10 people. They like to insure for that something for 10,000 people, 100,000 people, right? So it's a numbers game. So here you have that going in your favor. You have many, many millions of farmers, right, that you insure against the same risk that they want to insure against, right? So you have the numbers for you, but then you also have the challenge of reaching out to them, right? So we have farmer cooperatives and all that. Maybe you can go through these farmer cooperatives as a group, right? Rather than individual farmers. I don't know how insurance works. I'm not an expert on insurance, but the fundamentals are out there. You got large numbers, millions, right? But then each one is small. So that's the challenge, right? The need is there for sure. They need more and more risk mitigation, right, from insurance.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. Looking at it, it seems like we have a lot of jobs to do so that the farmers will be more educated that insurance is not just an expense, but as a necessity.
Absolutely.
So we have to really work more to reach out to this cooperative to mitigate those risks. So before we close, I have a final question. If you are going to speak to a young entrepreneur who wanted to start on a small, sustainable company or farm company or looking into innovation in agriculture, what should it be?
Okay, the key thing, as I mentioned earlier, is ROI, return on investment. Whatever the person, the entrepreneur, the budding entrepreneur wants to come up, or the scientist that wants to come up with some new technologies for agriculture, for anything actually, is to make sure that what you come up with is going to generate a positive ROI, return on investment, right? So I often tell people, you have the best technologies in the world, you have the best products in the world, but until and unless a farmer who uses it is going to get a positive return on investment, it's of no use, right? You can't have the best outcome in terms of regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, but if the farmer that adopts it, that wants to use it and not going to get a return on investment, a positive return, then it is no use. That is the thing that must be focused upon, right? Anybody who wants to come up with something new, right, be it for agriculture or anything else, make sure there will be a positive ROI, right? So this is one step that a lot of budding entrepreneurs, they skip this part, right? They don't look at what is the economics out there, for this technology or this product. So my advice is look into that first, right? If it doesn't generate a positive ROI, don't do it.
That's excellent advice. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.